What's up, guys? How's it going?
Hey there.
We have a little special treat for you. I am not only talking with my good friend Nate, I am actually sitting right next to him in beautiful Oahu, Hawaii, where I've been for the last, I guess, 8 or 9 days. Actually, I've been in Hawaii proper rather than in Oahu. I just got here last night. But anyway, a brand new set just came out, the set called Streets of Capenna, which has a bunch of really cool tools, particularly for Brea, right?
Oh yeah.
A bunch of new tricolor, well, triomes that are fetchable. So naturally, we're playing Edric instead of Brea for this video. Nate's been just tinkering with the deck a little bit. I think he was just a little tired of playing Brea and the fact that the deck just feels far too fair against high caliber competition, particularly partners and stuff. So we kind of went in another direction here and decided to go take another look at this deck, which we have played in the past extensively, but have kind of shelved in lieu of playing more traditional control strategies. One problem with Edric that you find when you play it in a casual room on Magic Online is that a fair number of people just consider the card unsportsmanlike, given that it's banned in various 1v1 formats, and that's completely sensible. However, that doesn't mean that you can't play with it in regular games, particularly when you give people the forewarning that you're playing a competitive deck. So people want to join your game, they're joining at their own risk, although I guess we have been ambushing other people's games.
A little bit, but not only out of necessity, not out of
yeah. And one of the reasons for revisiting this deck obviously was the fact that other tools for it have been printed. I would say that the list is probably about 95% what we were using before, but a couple of things have come along, I think in the last maybe year or so, to make the deck stronger and iron out some of its general weaknesses. Obviously, the mana base is a little better, although I don't see. Oh, that's the other Boseiju. That's right. I was wondering, like, why are we playing that?
Right.
The colorless Boseiju. Yeah, bunch of new cool lands actually. More blue green dual lands. The Rimewood Falls, another tropical island fetchable. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth is really strong in the deck. Urza Saga, very powerful, and then the new channel lands also just give you extra utility out of your mana base, which is kind of just a free roll thing. Jeweled Lotus. Still kind of on the fence about the card. I don't think that it's. I mean, it's definitely not at its best in a deck like Edric, given the fact that turn one Edric isn't always the right play, and sometimes it's better to just develop mana. It kind of depends on what your opponent does. But the flexibility of it, the fact that you can just bring him out of the command zone later on in the game for cheaper is often really important, so you can protect him with a counterspell. Other additions are Keenan Bonder Prodigy and. Certainly correct me here, Nate, if you see anything. Yeah, additional bounce spells. Yeah, I think I was just playing Into the Royal and Blink of an Eye, as well as Venser and Cryptic Command. But Nate became very bullish. It took a bit to convince him, but once he played a few games and realized just how much of a tempo deck this is, Nate came on board with the bounce plan and actually included even Brazen Borrower. Only disadvantage of Brazen Borrower is it doesn't target permanents you control, which is actually a real game plan in the deck. A lot of recursion out of Gilded Drake, out of cards like the Reclamation Sage or the Eternal Witness and stuff to get tons of extra graveyard recursion out of the bounce. So it's not just a matter of tempo. You can often get card advantage with it and duplicate really powerful effects like the Cyclonic Rift multiple times and stuff. The rest of the deck, pretty much the same. It's a super tempo-based green-blue deck. I think this is the way to play Edric. A lot of people play really fast, low-to-the-ground versions of it, and those decks work amazingly well when everything comes together. But in the games where your opponent mounts any type of defense, hits you with a creature sweeper or a few spot removal spells, you're just drawing 1/1 dorks and you don't have any way to get back into the game. This deck is really powerful in the sense that it can play that entire tempo-based acceleration game at the start and just bury your opponent in an avalanche of extra cards. And you can also play a mid or even long game using some of the late game tools like Opposition Winter Orb, Terastodon, Natural Order, and recurring that repeatedly and stuff. It's just very flexible, extremely powerful, and I think one of the best decks in the format. We just haven't played it a ton due to the fact that Nate loves to play 4-color Brea decks.
It's been amazingly. I played Edric for a long time, and then I was taking a break from it, and I looked back and realized it's been years actually.
Yeah, the last time we revisited was I think 2 or 3 years ago when we went with kind of a bigger mana version of it.
Right.
Just some bigger, flashier spells. But I think ultimately, because you're playing blue-green, your ability to kind of control the mid-game is really limited. You don't have spot removal,
right.
And bounce is not a particularly good counter-based control containment strategy. It's way more conducive to tempo. I think that's something you kind of came around to. You wanted to talk about your journey.
Yeah, it's just Brea and Edric. I guess the difference is that with Brea, you're tending to focus on generating a ton of mana initially and then making large, impactful plays. Whereas with Edric, you're kind of flipping the script on that, because if you do that, like we kind of played around with like the Gilded Lotus, Strand Dynamo stuff, you generate a ton of mana, and then you're making small, non-impactful plays like after you've got your Gilded Lotus and your Thran Dynamo, and then you're casting Priest of Titania.
Yeah, tap it to cast two
like,
elves. It just feels stupid. Exactly.
It just, it's completely ridiculous. So, in theory crafting, of course, you always draw your elves first and then your big mana, but in reality, it's random, right? So, doesn't make as much sense. Whereas if you have your bounce spells, like buying time and stalling them out and getting refilled with Edric, it's just so much better. And of course, like you said, there's just so many combos that work with the bounce effects.
Exactly. They're not just for constraining the opponent. They often enable your own stuff. And particularly, I think one of the reasons why this deck is ultra appealing is that whenever you play the competitive tables, everybody's running Jeweled Lotus. And it's really annoying playing a deck where a sizable chunk of your games are just instantly counterfeited by your opponent lotusing out at 4 or 5 mana commander on turn 2.
Right.
And when you have tons of bounce, you just laugh at it. In fact, we've already had a bunch of games where that was the exact outcome. Our opponent goes all in on Lotus. We just pounce or steal his guy, and it's just instantly over.
Yeah, I feel like this is actually the main reason to switch to Edric, and why I've been enjoying it so much is that it's suddenly no longer Jeweled Lotus vulnerable, and has the ability to take advantage of it as well. So in a Jeweled Lotus format, I think Edric definitely gets the edge.
Yeah, completely shines. And the deck it's a really, really tight list. There are a couple of cards that are kind of floating around on the bubble that we haven't been able to play. You'll notice the deck has no Narset in it. Nate was really resistant to that, but I think that the creature density, it's got 26 creatures in it and 32 lands, so well over half the deck is not fetched by Narset. And a lot of the time you might be using Narset and get something that's not even really that impactful anyway, like a Signet or something. So, or a mana source versus a really powerful spell like a Toxic Deluge or Yawgmoth's Will or something. So I think the card is, while it's extremely powerful, it doesn't really feel like it fits with the theme, and only really works in games where you're already really woefully behind.
And it's also kind of clunky because you often want to leave UU untapped because you are the tempo deck.
Yeah, you are the tempo deck, and it's vital. You can just win the game off in the first couple turns by just countering the first couple plays they make and just going off from there. But anyway, so without further ado, I'm going to jump into a game that we played just a few minutes ago. Phenomenal game against this guy, Master of Nature, who apparently is a fan of Nate's channel, and I've definitely played against him before. We've been going first seemingly every game this game.
And
or this session, yeah. We certainly had our fair share of mana screw. But we're going first again, and looking for a good draw. So let's kick this off here. All right, and he's playing the dreadful, terrorizing Yisan Wanderer Bard. Definitely one of the. It's actually one of the commanders I fear probably the most. I've lost a lot of games to it. On this, if I were to rank all the commanders that I've lost games to, I would say Yisan is probably top 3, just by nature of the fact that it's just one of those commanders. They often, if they go first, they very frequently get it on turn 2. And if you don't draw a very narrow range of cards, you're kind of out of the game from that point onward, because they're able to protect it. They're able to fetch Sylvan Safekeeper and start protecting it right away. And then it just ramps rapidly into mana acceleration into kill you, usually by turn 4, turn 5. So it's extremely dangerous and threatening commander, very easy to deploy, extremely linear and hyper competitive. So definitely hands us our fair share of losses. We have a hand that I think is just kind of borderline, but it does contain a couple of really key points. Obviously, it's got Jason the Mind Sculptor. That gives us the ability to deal with Yisan. We are going first, which is incredibly important. We have acceleration. Cavern of Souls kind of terrible in this situation, but just barely good enough. Fierce Guardianship, not likely to be great against an entirely creature-based deck, but could matter for stopping late-game acceleration. And Cryptic Command, which is an incredibly powerful tool in the deck, despite its triple blue casting cost. So I think this hand is like 50th percentile, maybe a little below, but I think probably better than a new hand of 7. So we're going to keep it. Yeah, I don't think I would have kept this hand going second. I think it would be too important to just have parity and get more mana acceleration. All right, we'll fetch the Tropical Island and cast Zenith. I love that it goes back in your deck, so you can use it later.
Zenith is a fun card. It's just powerful enough to make the cut, and just fair enough not to you don't feel dirty when you play it. You know?
Yeah, definitely. So Master of Nature mulligan, he's fetches turn 1, so that's definitely going to mean some sort of mana generator, and sure enough, he's got Bird. So that's just short of something like Mana Crypt. or Chrome Mox into Soul Ring or something into Yisan turn 1, this is about the best start this deck can handle. And this is exactly why we would never have kept this draw going second, because he'd go turn 1 Bird, we do this. He has Yisan out before we've even been able to do anything. We can't interact with it, and it's already gotten Sylvan Safekeeper before the game even gets started, and then there's no way to stop it.
Right.
And you basically just sit around waiting to die, which is not a fun way to play the game.
Whereas now, at least we have some time.
Yeah, so
he gets to that point.
Yeah, top deck Spellseeker. So looking at the choices here, I'm going to click past it too fast.
Nice.
A bunch of counter spells, and this is just clearly it's a bounce turn, right? Assuming he's going to play Yisan, we're just going to try to tempo him and try to get another blue mana source to play the Jace the Mind Sculptor and just keep him. I mean, Jace against Yisan is so powerful, particularly if he doesn't have any type of creature in play to attack into the Jace. And if he's just replaying Yisan 3 turns in a row while you bounce it for 0, you're probably going to win. So with that in mind, we're going to go with the most powerful tempo play, and that's Snap. Oh, Ancient Tomb. I know, as soon as we see this, we're just sink down in the seat, but it's not the end of the world, right? The only problem, the problem is I got to draw blue mana, right? And most of the lands in the deck produce blue mana or fetch blue mana, so the chances are high if we draw a land that it will make a second blue. However, the Ancient Tomb is really, really nasty because of just tempo, and it gives them the ability to play another mana creature. Or something 10 times worse. Ule Rade, my old friend from the Pro Tour. Yeah, I mean, come on. Who even needs to fetch it, right? You just have it in play. So now we are absolutely screwed. Even if we draw blue mana here, what do, right?
The problem is
bounce his guy and make him sack a land, and then just Yisan just kicks off his thing.
And if you're not familiar, if the snap gets countered by by targeting something that becomes an invalid target, the untap effect gets countered.
Yep.
So it's not like we can try to snap, have it get countered, and then untap our lands and play the Jace. It's not going to work.
No, it's not even an option.
If we even get them.
Yeah, if we even get a second blue. So sitting here, we just have to draw blue mana to have any chance this game already. Come on, deck. Yeah. Nice. All right. So I just play the Jace here. It's the most mana efficient thing to do. We expect that if we snap anyway, he's just going to sack a land. So we'd have only 2 mana left and couldn't do anything. So far better to just play the Jace the Mind Sculptor here, get it on board, force him to sack a land, and just cross our fingers that he doesn't have more lands in hand. And then seemingly, for no reason I can discern, other than probably just yielding priority, or him clicking too fast, he lets us bounce the Yisan, right?
I mean, I was thinking, maybe he's got no lands, but it still doesn't make sense.
It still doesn't make sense, right? Because he's got Tomb Birds, so he can just sack the forest, and next turn this is one of the reasons why the Tomb is just such a backbreaking play. Because even if he only has 1 land, he can still run the Yisan anyway and get more mana creatures. Right. And he has a land anyway, so it would have been for nothing. All right, Yisan. And unfortunately, we got Spellseeker to block the Sylvan Safekeeper, so we get to keep a vital extra counter on Jace. All right, what do we do here? Got to draw another blue mana, too, at some point for that Cryptic. Right on schedule, it arrives, although it does come into play tapped. So a lot of choices to consider here. One of them is playing Edric is always an option, but doesn't really accomplish anything given that he's got a 2/3. We kind of just have to address the Yisan and try to just tangle it up as much as possible. And because of Sylvan Safekeeper, we don't have any way to actually return it to his hand in a deterministic way, but we can destroy his land at the cost of a Jace activation and a snap. And so and basically just trying to stall him. I mean, he's only got 4 cards in hand. He already mulliganed. If we can kill both these for us, it does reduce him down to Ancient Tomb and Birds, but it's going to be hard for him to really leverage the Yisan if he can't use it more than once a turn, and we can probably still tempo him out. So the goal right here is to just kill lands as much as possible and hope that he just runs out of mana, because we have bounce for days. So with that in mind, the best play ultimately is play Garruk Wildspeaker, play the Sanctum tapped, cast, or use Jace the Mind Sculptor to target one of these guys, force him to use it in response, and then cast Snap in response, force him to use it again to kill 2 land. So that is the play we elect to make. Tap this 2, and it bounced to Sylvan, so he's going to sack a land. Yeah, and he has the foresight at least to do that. A lot of people probably would have actually let this happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the other option, of course, would have been him sacking a land to protect Yisan, but we do have the instant speed snap that he knows about due to Spellseeker, so he's making the right play by protecting it, and then we can snap in response, and he taps for mana and sacks another land.
Which makes sense. You might as well tap for mana. I mean,
yeah.
You never know if your opponent has some play that
all right.
taxes you. But.
So I'm fully prepared. So this is interesting here. I'm fully prepared for him to attack in with Yisan Wanderer Bard potentially to kill off Jace now that it's down to 0. But he really wants to use it to get the train running, which means that the only viable creature he can attack with is Sylvan Safekeeper. And we can safely block that with Spellseeker, which is, of course, what we want him to do. So that means that the Jace is likely to survive till next turn.
Right. I mean, if he attacks with both, it's actually doing us a favor, killing the Safekeeper and keeping off Yisan activation.
Yeah, and here I'm just thinking, like, please don't have another land. But unfortunately he does, after the mulligan and everything. And I imagine it's a deck that doesn't run a ton of lands. So certainly on the plus EV side for him. All right, he's just passing back, which makes sense. Just waiting for us to run out of ways to bounce his guys. And we don't have a way to prevent a Yisan activation now, which is acceptable.
And of course, the problem is he gets start running away with the train here. He can the bounce isn't going to matter. The lands aren't going to matter. Once he gets going, he can get to a point where he's producing so much mana from the creatures that he's fetching that he's going to run away with the game.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of different directions to go here. And at this point in the game, Nate notices a potential play. One way you can deal with Sylvan Safekeeper and Yisan, of course, is through Cyclonic Rift, due to the fact that its overload doesn't target anything. And we do actually already have 7 mana, thanks to Garrick, to run that combo. We could do that right now. We could just Cryptic Command the Spellseeker back to our hand. And given that we've got 7, we could just immediately redeploy it and get Rift. But I'm kind of the opinion that that doesn't really further the plan that much. He does have some lands in his graveyard, and we're going to use Jace again to bounce to destroy another mana, but we don't really know where it's going to lead. And though it does provide quite a bit of tempo, I think it's more important to build some more board presence and continue to meddle with his mana before we go for that play. Just given the fact that Yisan is not, it doesn't have like 4 or 5 counters on it.
Right.
If it had 4 or 5 counters on it, I think it would become like crisis situation. We need to just get the Spellseeker back in the hand and bounce the Yisan or bounce everything to reset. But I think that we have it.
Basically.
Yeah, I think we have at least enough time, even though it involves the painful cost of sacrificing Jace for his final counter. So I'm gonna eventually do that. So he sacks a land here. That's
Makes
fine.
me wonder if they printed Jace that only was just 3 boomerangs, like an enchantment. Like would that card would be amazing.
Yeah, I think they've made that actually. Yeah, I screw up a bit here with the mana. I think there's no reason to tap Cavern for Elf for green mana. Yeah, so there's a bit of waste. But anyway, I'm going to play Eternal Witness and get Snap back. This is just pure tempo again. And we're really hoping at this point that he sacrifices the Ancient Tomb, because that will cut him off. Like, even if he has Yisan with the counter on it, he's not going to even be able to, well, he gets some mana, but he's going to need to draw another land in order. This is so crazy. We're playing this blue-green, like, weird land destruction deck. We killed 4 land. We killed 5 of this guy's mana.
Sinkhole, untap 2 lands.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Resolves.
Yeah. But he shrouds his guy. He has no land in play, but he does have 2 mana. Now I'm just hoping, please do not have another mana. And we could probably wrap the game up right here.
I can't tell you how many times I thought Witness was an elf. So
yeah, it looks like it should be.
Like it should be.
I mean, come on. And it's kind of, I guess it's a shaman.
Everything 2/1 and under should be an elf in green.
All right. Oops. And of course, he's got another forest. Oops. Let's not skip past the turn. I was just playing right there. All right. So we're going to have to accept a Yisan Wanderer Bard for 2. And we gave up on the Cryptic Command play, but we can always do it the next turn.
We were quickly running out of time, too.
Yeah, Arcane Signet. Yeah, in my experience, 4 and 5 mana, 4 and 5 counters is about the point when the Yisan Wanderer Bard tends to kill you. So we do have a little bit of time, and he doesn't have because we've killed so much mana, he can't get like Seeker of Skybreak or something that untaps it where he can use it twice a turn, which is when things get really hairy because we've killed so many mana sources. So that's at least paying off right now. All right, just gonna tap some mana here. Cast our Edric, just get more board presence. It allows me to untap 2 land. And so now I'm going to go for this play, and after some discussion, the play that we determined makes the most sense, since he's going to get another creature at the end of the turn here. It's almost certainly going to be Priest of Titania, and yes, certainly it is. We're feeding it as well with an elf of our own. He's got 3 elves in play, or there's 3 elves total.
Which we might have held back the elf, but it makes sense here. We've got the fierce.
Yeah, I think it's too important, and this obviously turns on Fierce Guardianship as well. And even though these decks don't tend to run many non-creature things, they do have Artifact Acceleration and a few other things that might cause problems. So yeah, I think it's just good to get it out, given that I don't have anything else to do with the mana. So during upkeep, I'm going to cast Cryptic Command to return the Spellseeker, as we said, to go fetch the Cyclonic Rift, as well as tap all of his guys. So this forces him to use Yisan in advance of the ability resolving, which means whatever he gets will be tapped, and he'll have no blockers.
Which is another reason to have played Edric, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
That
I
is
remember
literally
you
the reason we
specifically
played it.
pointing
Yeah,
out,
I
yeah.
was intending to tap all those guys in attack to draw 4 because we can. That's weird. I don't remember that happening. Mana Crypt, okay. We've got Fierce Guardianship to stop that. Very, very important. But he gets an Ancient Tomb off of his Ramen Up guy. So not going to be able to constrain his mana for very long. This is going to have to be a very, very impactful turn.
Yeah, we were about out of time.
Yeah, just one more turn left due to all the meddling with this guy. Counterspell. Very, very timely. Very overjoyed to see that. So there's some discussion about how many things to attack with. If we attack with just 2, thanks to Garrick, even if we don't draw land, we have the ability to Cyclonic Rift.
If we can draw it.
If we draw into it. But I ultimately decide that it's better to attack with all 3, given the fact that the Dryad Arbor, if it draws a land, will essentially replace itself for mana. And I think the chances of drawing a land are pretty high in the top 3 cards. Plus that takes us a card deeper.
Yeah.
And it ultimately makes the most sense.
And Pace and Dividend, Pace and Spades.
Yeah, and you can see actually which one I draw. So the first draw is Skull Clamp. Second one is Mana Leak, and that magical third card is quite a land.
Yeah.
Ancient Tomb, absolutely insane. All right, that allows us to play the Spellseeker. And go get the Rift.
Funny enough, we're actually 1 land short of...
yeah, we were almost able to just Rift him right away. Exactly, which would have been just incredibly devastating. Because then he can't even play... I mean, I guess he would probably play Ramanop, play a land, and cast Sylvan Safekeeper again.
Yeah.
But he'd be so far behind at that point. We'd be attacking with 3 or 4 creatures, as well as with backed up by Garrick. All right. So I tap this 2 land. I play the Arcane Signet. Maybe should have cast Skull Clamp here, but it's not going to probably matter much.
Just a little insurance against like a strip mine.
A strip mine or something, exactly.
No.
So we see him tapping 8 mana here, and it can only mean one thing. His Crater Hoof Behemoth in his hand. So I can understand this play. We only have 4 cards. He knows that one of the cards is Cyclonic Rift, since we just got it with the Spellseeker. So decent chance we don't have a counter here, and he can win on the spot. So I totally respect this play. I think it makes the most sense, given the fact that if Rift resolves, his chances of winning probably go down to 0. So he's going for the win here. Fortunately, we've drawn both Counterspell and Mana Leak, and I'm able to leak it. And that is the end of the game.
Very nice.
And that, my friends, is how you beat Yisan the Wanderer Bard. You destroy all their mana, right? It's the same strategy the control decks have always used to constrain decks like this and to win games. We'll definitely have some more games with this deck as we continue to play, and hopefully have the time to narrate them. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and that's all I got to say for now.
Thanks for
Anything
watching.
else to add?
See you next time.
All right.